What does it take to make a workshop work? How can we facilitate collaboration that actually sticks and leads to results? My name is Miriam Happness, and it is my mission to help you to make workshops work. So today with me on the show is Gustavo Razzetti, a speaker, author, change facilitator, and the founder of Liberationalist. He is a very active blogger, so he has written over 400 articles on change, on leadership, and on meetings. So in today's conversation, we talk about meetings and what we can do to actually get out of the autopilot routine that makes meetings drag energy and be a waste of time, or at least perceived as a waste of time. And we talk a lot about change and how change happens and how change happens through meetings and how we can make it better. So stay tuned. Hello, Gustavo.
Hello, how are you?
I am very well. I am about to leave on holidays, so I'm very relaxed and looking forward to our conversation. How are you?
Absolutely. I'm doing great. Thank you for inviting me. And I think it's awesome that we're going to talk about meetings right before your vacation, right?
Yes, exactly.
To recover from all the meetings you had.
Exactly. I definitely need that. I'm quite excited to have this conversation with you and to have you on the podcast because I am such a huge fan of your blog. And when you sent the message on LinkedIn that you would be happy to join the podcast, I couldn't believe it.
Serendipity. Yeah.
Yes. And there would have been a million topics, I think, to talk to you about. And maybe the most prominent one would have been change. And still, I fell in love with your never-ending article about meetings. So I thought you must be the meeting specialist, despite the change instigator title.
No, of course. I mean, I don't think I'm an expert. No one's an expert. We all try to make meetings better. And the success of a meeting depends on facilitation, depends on having a clear purpose, but also method. And one thing that's important when we're trying to address and ignite and accelerate change at an organizational level, meetings play a very important role. Mm-hmm. No, because it's about having conversations, about having people collaborating, working together. So I think the most important shift is to move from meetings being a burden and something that I need to attend and maybe attend a meeting by inertia. No? Why are we having this meeting? Let's start questioning the meetings that we have. Do we really need to have them? Can we make them more interesting? Or can we make them shorter? No? So that's part of change too, right? How we work together.
And we are already jumping right into the topic, and I love it. And I still have one question that I need to ask before everything, because on your LinkedIn profile, you call yourself a change instigator. What do you mean by that? And to what extent is it different from a change consultant?
Two things. The word consultant that you bring has a lot of negative it feels that someone that gets paid to do things and they're going to try to build you as many hours as possible.
To tell others what to do.
Getting paid is never bad. But I think that then other people talk about being change facilitators or change leaders. And I think that when you say that you are a change leader, it feels that you are leading the change and people are following. Mm-hmm. And for me, change is like a fire. In my case, I try to instigate the one who starts it. Mm-hmm. Now, that's why clients bring me to their organizations. But then I want to make sure that the rest of the team continue to become a change instigator, propagate that passion to become more innovative.
So how much willingness do you need in the first place to really drive the change? Because I found on your website, you have a template for how to design culture design canvas. So can you design a change, or does it really need to already to have an ember in the organization?
I think that designing doesn't mean that you structure it and you define everything. So designing when it comes to the culture is we need to agree on what's our purpose as a team or organization. What are the behaviors that are accepted and should be rewarded? What are the behaviors that we don't want to accept as a team and are going to hinder innovation? So that's basically about defining certain parameters and, for example, meetings. How are we going to meet? How often? What for? What are the team rituals that bring us together? How do we celebrate? How do we embrace mistakes and failure and learn from it? So setting certain practices and beliefs is not shaping everything in advance, because I think that, to your point, you might define the overall long-term purpose. No, let's say I want to go to Amsterdam. Okay, I know that that's the destination, but how I'm going to get there, how long it's going to take, how painful and joyful, you never know in advance. So you start setting different tasks and small projects and changes to get there.
So what do you think is the biggest misconception of change? Especially when you think, okay, I want to go there. Everyone wants to go somewhere. But usually we only realize along the way how painful it is.
Yeah, I would say it's painful but not harmful. You know, I think that sometimes we make change harder than it should. Because, of course, if we consultants and bosses tell the rest of the team that, oh, change is hard, then when it fails, we have an excuse because we already told it's hard. And as a consultant, it means that it's going to take more money, more time to make things happen. I think change is not easy either, but it's more natural than we actually think. You know, we are by design change animals. I mean, we grow our hair, our body. Babies learn how to walk and no one teaches them. I mean, parents try to, but I mean, they learn on their own. They fall, they get up, they fall, they get up, and at some point they say, no, it hurts falling so much, so I better start walking. So they figure it out. And that's something, and the second part, using the same metaphor of babies, I think that we think that change is something that we can control people, but we can't. So when parents, I know if you've seen this, when parents are teaching a baby how to walk, you have one parent holding the baby and the other one on the opposite direction. Probably at the very beginning, the baby walks in a straight line because that's how he's trained, and also because he wants someone to hold him so he doesn't fall or she doesn't fall. But once the baby starts walking, she's not going to go toward the other parent. She's going to go wherever the baby wants. So that's something about leaders should motivate and give people the right condition and culture for people to walk on their own, but they're going to go wherever they want. So finding that balance, you know what I mean? That's basically so the purpose is I want people to walk, but how are they going to walk? How often? That's something that unfortunately need to let people choose. Huh?
So how do you help leaders to find comfort in this? Because it's a huge uncertainty for a leader, right? To say, okay, the change is going to happen, but I have to trust basically the organization that they will find a way on how to live and drive and maintain this change.
Yeah, I think that first we need to change the paradigm, like freedom or autonomy. It's the other side of the coin of responsibility and accountability. Control, on one hand, it's another coin, and on the other side of control, what you have is blame. So when I'm being controlled, that means that someone's going to be punished if things don't go well. That means that then we set a culture of blame, not of accountability. So when you have a lot of rules, a lot of control, a lot of, you need to do this way because I'm telling you, then people become more into the blame mindset, which is, either I need to please my boss so I don't get fired, or I get that promotion, or I get that salary raise, or if something gets wrong, it wasn't me, someone else should be blamed for.
Do you think these would be the same people that you mentioned before who would also say that it's so difficult just to cover their back? Because if it's difficult, then they tend to control and then to blame?
Absolutely. I think that, of course, and I work a lot with leaders and their teams first, to shift this mindset from being more control, more top-down, to be more open and delegate more. That's hard. But people realize that the moment they start trusting their team trusts them more. So it releases them from a lot of pressure, if you know what I mean, a lot of stress, because they feel that it's not just on them, but it's on the team to make change happen.
Yeah. I was just wondering, because it sounds so easy, you just need to trust your team. And I totally hear you, and I would probably say the same, but now I'm sitting on the other side, so I can ask the question. Isn't it easier said than done? And what does it take actually for a leader to trust its team?
I hear you. I mean, that's the number one objection. I hear that all the time. So instead of trying to fighting an objection with something rational, because, if you believe something and I tell you, no, you shouldn't believe that, it's like people are not going to change their mind. I try to focus on practices and exercise to demonstrate how. I always use this analogy. I tell, when you treat your team as adults, they're going to behave like grown-ups. When you treat your people like kids, because they you should do this, you show up at 9 o'clock, you should eat lunch at that time. When you start telling them all the things they need to do, people behave like children.
Yeah.
So basically, when dad or mom is not present, we're going to do whatever. When the boss is in the office, we're going to pretend that we're doing what he wants or she wants. So in that sense, I think the first thing is to realizing that if you want people, trust is a two-way street. So if I, as a leader, don't trust my team, then my team is not going to trust me. That's the first point. Second,
as in a relationship.
As it's any relationship. And unfortunately, and I read a lot about trust, I did many, many years of research on the topic, you have to take the first step, like in any relationship. In order to gain trust, you need to be trustworthy. You need to embrace, that's the other step. As a leader, you need to embrace your own accountability and vulnerability. So start by sharing your mistakes. Start by owning your mistakes. Start by showing that you don't have all the answers, because when it comes to making a company more digital, more innovative, we don't know what's going to happen in 2 years, or not even in 1 year from now, or in 6 months. So admitting and acknowledging that you don't have all the answers, leading more with questions, challenging people, it's going to earn that trust. Because people, when you try to know it all, people say, who are you? And they don't trust you.
Yeah.
The other aspect that is important in terms of trust, shifting from one position to another takes time. So it's not that it's easy. It's easy, but it's going to take time until it happens. First, because changing behavior requires cadence. Second, because whenever you say, guys, I'm going to give you more freedom, more autonomy, people are going to say, yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm going to wait until the first one to do it, slap on the face. So they need to see that people are going to start making mistakes. They're going to test you. It happened. I ran companies in the past. So as a CEO, when I say, hey, guys, more freedom, they were like, sure. And I wasn't a super control freak, but still, you need to show them, and they're going to test you. They're going to push your bottoms to see how far are you willing to go. And the other part, no transition is smooth. So don't expect that change is not, I move from A to Z. No, there's a lot of letters in between, and it's up and down. It's messy. It's chaotic, and it's human. So people, when you give them more freedom, let's say when Netflix implemented many years ago the unlimited vacation policy. So basically, any employee could take as many days of vacations as they want. When I say share this with a client, they say, sure, but then no one's going to come and work.
And that's not true. Yeah.
That's not true. First, because people like the work, their job, most of them, right?
Yeah.
But if you create a company where you're doing something that is meaningful, is exciting, people don't want to lose it. They want to be there.
Yeah, they want to participate in the creation of something bigger. So, and they won't, it's this extra responsibility that actually motivates us to deliver better work. And a sense of progress. I totally believe in the progress principle.
Absolutely. And I think that if you change a policy, maybe at the very beginning, some people are going to say, I'm going to take 2-week vacation. But then the system adjusts, because the rest of the team members are saying, hey, I need you to help me,
There's some peer pressure. And I think it's maybe instinctive that when we are trusted, we want to reciprocate.
Yes.
That is, as you mentioned before, when the kids are given more responsibility to come home at a certain time or to do stuff, then they will, and I wonder whether it is really instinctive or just learned behavior.
I think it's a little bit of both, but as human beings, we're social animals, right? We're wired to work as a community. We feel protected, we want recognition, we want to be like part of something bigger than ourselves.
Mm.
So the policies that are more flexible and promote more autonomy basically are built in trusting the team as a whole rather than controlling each of the individuals.
Yeah. Well, but this departs from the premise that you recruit a team that actually can fulfill all the roles and the tasks. So you need a well-functioning team.
Yes, you need a well-functioning team, but also you need a well-functioning culture.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, for example, traditionally, like one thing that most companies did is when one person is not performing, they see it as an individual issue, right? So basically that person enters a review process that in most of the cases ends in that person being fired or put aside, and then the person ends quitting because she or he's never going to get a promotion or anything.
Yeah.
One thing that Google discovered through research and testing is sometimes changing one person from one team to another completely improves the performance.
Yeah.
So the chemistry within the team, if the team is psychologically safe and they provide a space for that person to experiment and be open to address their mistakes, changes the notion. So some companies, for example, they have a no firing policy. So they say that no one would ever be fired. That's an extreme, right? But it's another approach to telling you like, okay, we trust you. We're not going to, there's no, we're going to get rid of people. But on the other hand, if you join, you have the pressure to, wow, the standard is so great that we need to deliver.
Yeah. It reminds me of the difference in selection process of universities. And I always wondered, because there are some, for instance, in France or in Germany, especially in Germany, they would allow every student to get into the university. And then after the first year, they just select depending on performance. And then in other universities, it's very hard to get in. But once you are in, you're sure to get your degree. So the level of collaboration among students and the level of commitment and participation and motivation is much higher once you have the safety that the university will do everything it takes for them to graduate. Because you take away this competition that only a few students will actually achieve the goal.
Yeah, but you start from we're all included. So that's collaboration, right? Here in the US, the system is more individual because basically it's about you have to make it, you have to. So it's everyone against everyone. And then when people get into the workplace, organizations set up reward system that basically are individual based. Yeah. I always tell teams, I always tell my clients, if you want your team to collaborate, reward team performance. Because if not, it's who gets the bonus, who gets the promotion, and then it's individual. But if you say like, either you're all rewarded or no one is rewarded, then they have to work together. When you say only one of the 5 or 7 is going to get a bonus, then it's all against each other.
And I think that's what many managers or organizations ignore, that you get what you incentivize to do. So if you incentivize competitive behavior by your staff members, then this is what you're going to see. So if you have an individual bonus, as you said, then of course they will compete to each other. And I think the incentive scheme or payment scheme is often not adapted to the organizational culture that leaders then define that they want to have.
Yeah, and compensation is very important or titles, because then everyone's fighting for that. Companies tend to have a culture of scarcity. So they say, well, we can only give one promotion. We can only give one salary increase. And then people are fighting for that. First of all, I would put titles aside, because titles, they create more issues than help, you know what I mean? Because people say, I want to be VP, I want to be SVP. I work in some companies that there were hundreds of VPs, but no one reported to them. So everyone got a title. So And it said, what's the point? So shifting from titles to roles, so basically you can play more than one role, allows people to feel more engaged, to do more purpose-driven work, and as well maybe to get more money because I'm very productive, I'm going to take another role. And then
it's more transparent as well. Yeah, totally. I could talk on and on with you about change, but actually I realized that I wanted to talk to you about meetings. But you already stated in the beginning that's very interrelated, and that basically change starts with meetings. So you need the meetings, you need to bring people together to discuss so that change can occur. Maybe one question first. What is the key difference between a meeting and a workshop, according to you?
That's a great point. I think that all meetings should be more like a workshop, right? But basically, in a workshop, the key focus is about learning new mindsets, new behaviors, addressing issues that you can do in meetings, and experimenting, no? Mm-hmm. So let's say that it's kind of, I don't like the word training because usually people think of training as teaching, no? Mm-hmm. But if you think of athletes, in the sports world, or if you think of artists, they spend most of their time practicing to be great at what they do, and so sports players practice 5 or 6 days a week, and they play once a week. Mm-hmm. Artists practice and write songs and whatever for I don't know how long, and then they go on tour for a month, and then they go back into. Mm-hmm. In the business world, we are always performing, but we don't practice. So workshops are more like practicing, preparing to become better at what we do. And meetings is a very important part of performing.
I like the picture. It resonates very well. And now because I read in one of your blogs that in meetings, so don't leave the meeting without getting the outcome or the goal that you came for. And I had the impression that this is also maybe an important difference between a meeting and a workshop, that in a meeting you have a very specific goal. You need to take a decision maybe, or you need to get some work done. Whereas a workshop, usually the work starts afterwards.
Not in my workshops. But I would say that maybe in a meeting you have a more short-term goal, right? If it's a daily meeting or a weekly meeting, whatever, you're trying to solve something really concrete. When I facilitate a workshop with clients, I always tell them that it's about changing behavior. So we focus on one behavior that I want the team to change in a week after the workshop, in a month after the workshop, and in a quarter after the workshop. So the workshop has a short, mid-term effect. The meeting have a more short-term goal.
Okay.
So, for example, we need to prioritize we are going to release a new product, a new software, and we need to prioritize the 3 or 4 things that we're going to change and who's going to take care of that. So you don't leave the meeting without those clear priorities and responsibilities. Yeah.
If you could change one thing in the way how organizations meet, what would you change?
One thing, that's hard. I would say that the first thing that comes to mind is, I would say, stop having meetings on autopilot.
Mm-hmm. So recurrent meetings.
Not only recurrent, but most of the time, I talk a lot about meetings because when I start working with a company, meetings are an issue. No? So I have a company, their senior leaders meet every month for 3 hours. So I always ask them, why are you meeting? No, you asked me about my hashtag early on. My hashtag is why. Is why always. So I tell them, why are you meeting? And usually you get crickets, right? And people start looking at each other. And then someone says, well, because we have to, or because we always do, or because the CEO expects us to meet, or because we need it. But they don't give a concrete answer tied to benefit. They don't say, we meet here because it's the only time to prioritize our work or make strategic decisions or no.
So what is, according to you, the best strategy to get out of autopilot?
I think it's becoming more mindful, and that means to start understanding why we do what we do. So it's asking, okay, why do we have this meeting?
Mm-hmm. Purpose.
So what's the real purpose?
Mm-hmm.
And could be a very lofty purpose, can be a very tactical and executional purpose. Second is, can that be solved without a meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Because many times people say, like, hey guys, you're sharing information you can do via email, Slack, other tools, you need to regroup. And it's not that I'm saying don't regroup, but if you bring people together, which is meetings are very expensive,
mm-hmm.
make sure that you meet to do work, to do something that you couldn't do effectively via email, Skype, or whatever. So then it's setting a clear outcome. What are we trying to achieve with this meeting? No?
Mm-hmm.
How will we define that this meeting has been successful?
Mm-hmm.
The third point is making it engagement, so turning into a meeting that people want to participate and not that they have to participate.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is about making it inclusive in terms of how can you facilitate it in a way that everyone will have a turn to speak, to share their ideas
mm-hmm.
the right way, and not that the CEOs always be the one talking, no?
So would you include kind of workshop elements in meetings in order to incentivize everyone to speak, or how would you do that?
I mean, you can include certain workshop elements, but also there are things, for example, very basic practice. It's kind of mindset, doing a check-in and
mm-hmm.
a check-out. So a check-in is asking what's got your attention
mm-hmm.
and asking one person at the time, so everyone knows what are the distractions and the tensions that they have on top of their head, so they can put them aside and focus on the work.
Mm-hmm.
Another practice that is really effective is what's called conversational turn-taking.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say that we're going to review the budget and we need to ask questions, or we need to reallocate money across different departments or whatever. So let everyone speak one at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Let the most senior and the most loud people speak last.
Mm.
So let the other people to have their turn, but also because when the CEO
mm-hmm.
shares her ideas, then it's influencing.
Leadership bias. Yeah.
Exactly. It's bias. But also train senior leaders to listen to people. Huh?
Would this in turn mean that if there's an intern in the room, that he or she would start speaking?
Yes, I would say so. It's not that you need to go by title, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not your turn into something hierarchical.
Yeah.
But I think that I would encourage either the most shy person
mm-hmm.
or the most, normally women, introverts, people from multicultural groups,
mm-hmm.
especially in the US, tend to be less outspoken. So this rule promotes that everyone feels included and they can share their opinions.
Yeah. Before we continue the show, let me take a brief moment to thank our sponsor, SessionLab. Are you using Excel or Word to prepare and schedule your workshops? Try something that is designed for facilitators. With an easy-to-use drag-and-drop agenda builder, SessionLab allows you to be free and creative in your workshop process design. SessionLab also comes with an immense built-in library of workshop activities and facilitation techniques to help you to find new inspiration for your sessions. Stop messing with spreadsheets and focus on designing engaging workshops. Try it as sessionlab.com. I wouldn't recommend it if I didn't believe in its value myself. I was always wondering whether, and when you said that most of the time we go on autopilot, and I have two things that come to my mind that may also impact, and I would be curious about your opinion. One is that, especially when it's a leadership meeting that is recurrent, so it's the same people, CEO, CFO, COO meet every month or every week. So they usually have the exact same agenda. So, okay, we start with reviewing the minutes of last times, then we agree on the agenda, then we discuss about A, B, C, and it's always exactly the same kind of structure, which might help, especially for the minutes and for the communication. But I think this also adds to the autopilot that many of the participants would just zone out because every meeting feels like the last one.
No, yeah, I mean, there are many ways to address that. One way is to build the agenda. Like when it's a weekly meeting, you can build the agenda on the fly, because you never know what are the issues that people want to discuss. No, so basically, it's you let each team member share attention. No, what's the tension that you're facing as a team member or as a team that we want to address? You collect all without getting into it. It's just collecting the tension, and then the team might decide to prioritize those, and then you start solving one at a time. So that's a way to do that, no? So
yes, assuming that there's no documentation that needs to be read before.
Yeah, it all depends.
Yeah,
there are some companies that practice what they call the silent meeting. So instead of sharing information on PowerPoint and everyone like listening, blah, 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 they provide a copy at the very beginning of the meeting. They allow people for, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, whatever it takes to review the material, write down their questions, and then they start sharing questions.
Actually, I love the idea because first it acknowledged that most of the time they don't have time to read it beforehand anyway. And and it forces them to reduce the reading material so that it can actually be done in 10 minutes.
Yeah, and you're focused because you don't have distractions. On the other hand, if you're the one sending the material to be reviewed, then you're going to get everyone asking the same questions through the same channels. So in the meeting, the notion of people jotting, like writing down their questions, it's interesting because sometimes we expect people to brainstorm out loud, and some people don't have that ability. So you give them some time to reflect on the document, capture your questions, and start sharing.
Yeah.
And if some people ask the same question, you need to repeat the question.
Yeah. And what I like to do in these cases is first to collect all the questions and then to answer them in a bulk, because otherwise you might get lost in the details of one question and never get to the second one, actually. And then you can also make sure that you don't have the redundant topics coming up.
Absolutely. That's great.
Do you believe in virtual meetings?
It's not a religion, so I wouldn't say believe or I'm kidding. No, yeah, I think that virtual meetings are great and really effective. The point for me, it's like the open and closed office, no? It's not one. The mistake that companies make is they think that it's one or the other. No? So I think that any company should have like a library, no, a space that you can go and read and check stuff and check books, whatever, and in silence and no one interrupts you, no? So the same happened with meetings. I think that certain topics are great to have, like, I have a lot of video Skypes for coaching or team sessions. But for example, if you're going to address very complicated or very sensitive issues, it's better to have people in the room, no? But also what you want to make sure is that if you're addressing attention with one person, that the person that is the conflict maker is not the one on the call and the rest are in the room, because then it's going to make it harder, if you know what I mean.
Then suddenly the connection breaks down. Oops.
Yeah. And I think that that's one of the Google published a study a couple of months ago about best practices for remote teams. And one of the things they say is make sure that there's no locals and virtual, but everyone feels that they are both local and virtual. Because sometimes a company has 5 people in one office and then 5 others spread out. And the people that are in the formal or the physical room tend to dismiss the ones that are outside. So once again, make sure that they are the ones that are on the camera are the ones to speak up first, acknowledge them, make them maybe share some kind of personal anecdote before the call starts so they are like present. Another thing that Google suggests is that try to at least, I don't know, once a year, once a quarter to bring everyone together. So share, it's a balance between virtual and physical. We're human beings, we need to have the connection. No?
Yeah. And this brings us back also to the meetings in general, because I think one purpose a meeting has, which is most often not verbalized, is that it's beyond the pure exchange of information and decision making. It's just coming together as a social ritual.
Yeah, I think that the meetings, if they're productive and well managed, well facilitated, it's a very effective way to get things done.
Mm.
But at the same time, while we're doing work, we are also like reinforcing our purpose, our connection, our network as a team. No? So a good meeting also strengthens the bonding between people. Because one thing could be like, look, I have to take care of these projects and I'm like this, I don't have bandwidth, right? And then another team member says, you know what, I can lend you one stuff, or I can take care of that project myself. Let's swap, whatever. So not only you solve the problem and you get work done, but you also strengthen the relationship between people.
Yeah. And they can feel that they can help each other, rely on each other, learn from each other. And this also creates bonds. And it's actually a good investment because it pays off even outside the meeting place when the conversations get faster. No.
Yes.
Well, the information acquisition gets faster because they know whom to ask.
No, absolutely. And there's also information that the interaction with people, and especially having some social time, so to speak, so you don't need to share about your kids, but it's having a little bit of that personal interaction increases the bonding. And there's a lot of research that shows that the more people know their team members, the more productive and the more creative and collaborative that team becomes.
Do you think this is related to the safe space? Because I can imagine if we feel safe, our brain goes, okay, relax, and then we can be creative. Whereas if we don't feel safe, we're in constant watch out, danger mode. So our survival instinct is on. So creativity doesn't have space.
Yeah, I mean, having a safe space or what's called psychological safety, it's critical because if I feel that I'm going to say something and you're going to say, or laugh at me or reject my idea or don't listen to what I'm saying or even fire me because of my ideas, then I'm going to turn to silence.
Yeah.
So trust, I mean, the collective trust, psychological safety is that the belief that the whole team is safe for me to have interpersonal relationships and interaction with people. So that's critical.
Yeah. And then exchanging personal stuff and stories. This creates this bond because it also shows vulnerability. It shows that we're all human. We all have our struggles and families and so on and so forth.
Absolutely. Creativity is a human act. So the more human we behave, the more creative we're going to become. When we try to, it's an emotional, it's like creation is an emotion. When you're writing, you don't know where you're going to land. You suffer, you struggle, you throw things away, you start all. So it's an emotional journey.
Yeah.
So when we embrace the emotional culture, we have bigger chances to succeed than when we try to suppress it.
Yeah. What would be your advice to a new team leader to have meetings that matter?
I think the first thing I would do is to try to prioritize what the team wants to achieve together and then brainstorm on how are the better ways to get that done. And then which meetings might be necessary. If you're a new team leader and the team already exists, one of the things I always ask people is to rank all the meetings from I love them and I hate them, and why, and brainstorm. Because many people in the team might have different opinions, but sometimes you get to realize, oh, wow, this meeting, the weekly status meetings, no one wants to join it, Yeah. So I would say you can eliminate a meeting, you can shorten it, you can make it more efficient, or you can keep it as is. If it's working, don't break it. Or improve it without changing it. And sometimes, for example, I work with team that, okay, instead of having a regular sitting down meeting, let's go for a walk and share all the tensions. So the team, 5 people, go for a walk to the park, around the office, you exercise, blah, 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 and that's it.
Yeah. So walking meeting.
A walking meeting. So you can share the issues, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So first of all, meetings, we tend to sit down. So when we sit down, the energy doesn't flow. We get bored. We get distracted. We need to do something. No. So for example, removing technology, if you're not going to use technology, it's important to focus. But sometimes a walking meeting, and if it's here in Chicago, it snows a lot of, so many times. You have a large office, walk across the office with your team and share the papers and talk. It becomes much more relaxed than when you're on a table divided by the coffees and the computers and the people, and then it feels more like rigid and structured and serious.
And it seems to be also the best strategy to fight this autopilot that you mentioned before. Because every time you walk, it will be different by definition.
Yeah, and if you choose, of course, different places, no? So one thing that I tell people, like, people say, I'm going to have all my meetings walking. No, that's once again, learn to balance, no? So first, not all meetings can be done while you're walking, no? Maybe you're discussing something very confidential, or maybe you need to share, or you need to brainstorm, whatever it's. So adapt. But also, I don't know, maybe you can say, the status meeting is going to be on Mondays or on Tuesday, and you switch the day. Or maybe one day you did it on the morning and another day you did it in the afternoon, and test. You need to test, and not only not to be on autopilot, but to see what works best. You know?
How important do you consider courage for team lead or for team leaders to be good meeting facilitators?
Courage. I think it's critical, because leading is about taking risks and putting your job at risk. I remember, like, I work in a company that we manage a large unit, but of course it wasn't the largest unit within a huge multinational company. So one of my roles as a CEO was to fight for my team to have a role, a place a seat on the table. And that meant taking a lot of risks and speaking up and whatever. And at some point, one of my team members came and said, well, I want to thank you because you're doing this for us. And I say, that's what I get paid for. If you have a formal leader title, you're being paid to risk your job. That's why you get paid more. Not to become comfortable, because you might get fired more frequently because you have to risk your job.
And I totally see that for the team leader when facing managers or people higher in a hierarchy. I was rather thinking of the meeting space with the team, because when I thought of this new kind of more creative, out-of-the-box meeting formats, for me it sounds as if you need a lot of courage, or at least self-confidence, maturity, or total foolness to be able to really suggest that and say, okay, that's what we're going to do now.
It has, but I think that the leader needs to set the stage of creating that safe space. No? So I cannot tell you and your team, hey, guys, go and have a walking meeting. But then the meetings with me, it's in my private office. I'm sitting behind this huge chair, and you're like this, intimidated with light on your face. Yeah. So if I start changing stuff, if I start taking risks, so I mean, one practice I did, and I also sometimes coach with teams, is like get a pizza, and get a lunch with a lot of people, like small group, people that report directly to you, but from different areas of the company. And everyone who grabs a slice has to ask a question to the CEO.
Nice.
And you have to answer all the questions, because that's the deal. And if someone gets 2 slices, he asks those questions. So. And that creates a dynamic that people say, well, if I don't ask, I don't eat. If I eat too much, so it creates a fun, engagement.
Yeah.
But you get to eat last. So if there's leftovers, you eat, but also eat cold, and you have to address every question in order to get your slice. So it's a nice gamification of.
That's very nice. And I guess that you can even use it for normal meetings. It doesn't need to be the CEO necessarily to answer the questions, but even in maybe a meeting to get everyone to speak and to ask questions and participate. Maybe they only get a slide if they ask a question in general or contribute to the topic.
Absolutely, yeah. No, that's the case. And also, like, for example, I was coaching a large team a couple of weeks ago, and the senior leadership says, oh, my team doesn't want to take risks. The typical, they're not innovative. They don't want to get out of the comfort zone, blah, the same old story that everyone tells me. And then at some point I started talking about mistakes and the role they play and how we need to start embracing mistakes more.
Mm-hmm.
So I called to this, not to the stage, but to a friend. I was talking with a large group, and I invited the CEO and the COO to join me and say, hey, come here, please. So, of course, the guy said, yeah, what's going on? When was the last time you make a mistake? And what have you learned? Why don't you share with your team? Like,
how did they react?
What? Like, people were like, so if those guys, I'm not going to tell you how it ended, but don't speak and they say, no, I don't make mistakes, then people are not going to trust you. They're going to say, yeah, sure, come on.
And
but if
they
speak up and they say, look, I scrubbed this, I did that stuff, and blah, 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 then you're creating a space where it becomes safer for people to speak up.
Yeah. And I think it's a test for authenticity, because the audience, the team will immediately grasp if it's just a fake mistake. It reminds me of this question in a job interview where people ask, so what are your weaknesses? And then, oh, I'm a perfectionist.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you ask the leader to admit a mistake and he said, oh, and then comes up with a fake mistake like perfectionism, I think this is, yes, I can see your face that you agree.
No, sorry, no, of course. Yeah, I say perfectionism is the enemy of innovation, so you don't want perfectionists.
Yeah, and it's and you will never make mistakes and never learn if you try to be a perfectionist.
Because they have all the best theory and answers, but they never implement anything.
Yes, I was so thankful when this article about mistakes landed in my inbox. It was perfectly after a week of one mistake after the other. So it was a good reminder. So I wrote down all my learnings from that. What makes workshops fail, according to you?
I mean, many things, no? So one way I measure success the success of a workshop is based on participation. And I always said, like, I do a lot of in-company, so workshops for a particular client. But sometimes I do open workshops where people, through a partnership, and people from different companies or walks of life come. And my measure of success is making sure that no one leaves the room before it ends. No? So, but I think that one of the key things that might make it unsuccessful or might hinder success is lack of adaptability or flexibility. Usually, I work with a lot of people. I like to design the workshops, in terms of goals, objectives, what's going to happen, the exercise duration, everything, and try to mix a little bit of theory, a little bit of exercise, a little bit of learning, so group activity, so mixing things, But you never know what's going to happen. So some things, as a facilitator, you say, oh, this exercise is fantastic. People are going to love it. And then when you throw it, people are like, so what can you do? You can continue pushing and try people to love it, or you can, guys, this is not working, throw it away, and boom. Or maybe you allocate 30 minutes to address certain, meetings. How are we going to increase communication or feedback, whatever? And that becomes a kind of worms, and you start, like, a lot of tensions start to show up, and it becomes like a huge thing because you're into something. So you can say, well, the next topic on the agenda is, and move on. Or you can say, look, I'm going to maybe delete something, but I'm going to give people more time because this is really critical.
Yeah.
So that flexibility, that level of adaptability is critical.
Okay, for the facilitator.
Yeah. You enter with a plan, but you need to manage the plan according to what people are really reacting to, both what they like and what they don't resonate. Yeah.
Yeah. So what kind of, I loved it when you said, oh, you arrive with an exercise that you love, and then you realize that they don't. What is your favorite exercise?
I have many. So I have one that is really, really simple, that I use it many times to kick off a workshop, especially when people don't know them that well. That's called Who Are You? I learned it in Stanford a couple of years ago. And basically, you pair people, so you have two people working together, and one person asks the question, who are you? And the other person answers, right? And then they switch turns. And we can do it now if you want. I can tell you, who are you?
I'm Miriam.
Who are you?
I am an entrepreneur, a facilitator.
Who are you?
I'm in Amsterdam. I see. So when would you stop?
Well, I give people sometimes like 2 minutes.
Okay.
So imagine people, and basically it's really uncomfortable because imagine 2 minutes that someone asks and the person that asks the question cannot make any comment or interrupt. He sticks to that.
Just who are you?
Just one question. But,
awesome.
And then they switch roles. You get to learn a lot about the other person, but also for us, we usually define who we are based on our title, on our role, if we have a family, blah, blah, blah. And this helps you peel the onion of the multiple layers of who we are.
Yeah. Just one comment. I think what is beautiful about this exercise is that the other person gets this full attention without judgment, because if you're only allowed to ask this one question, who are you? You can feel the focus of the other person who listens, and you don't feel judged. You cannot feel judged because there's no space for commenting. So it creates a lot of trust in little time, I can imagine.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So it creates, people learn a lot about people that have been working for years together in 2 minutes. Yeah. But also create that trust.
I can imagine that it becomes very emotional very quickly.
Yes, it is. It is. And then people, because you need to make them feel emotional and comfortable to then start building trust.
Yeah.
You don't build trust from an intellectual standpoint.
No, it doesn't work. And
then I have another exercise, which is my favorite, that is more of an exercise that I designed. That's called the accountability partnership or the duo partnership. And it's basically, when we talk about teams, we always talk about the team as a unit, but there's also the mutual reciprocal relationships that count. So this is about finding, if there's a team of 8 or 10, each person find their accountability partner. So let's say you and I work on the same team and we're going to become accountability partners. So there's a template and a format, I have it on the website with all the explanation, that each person defines one behavior that they want to change.
The other one will change. So I define your behavior.
No. Each defines, that would be a nice, I'm going to take that would be a great, no. It starts with each one defines their own behavior first.
Okay.
We can do that. I'm going to try that. So let's say that I want to start showing on meetings better prepared or on time, whatever is my stuff. So then you have to set metrics of how you're going to see that that's going to be successful. Then I need to define what I expect from you, how you can help me succeed. No? And that could be, and what kind of partnership do I expect from you? Do I want you to be like a bossy that's going to call me out when I don't do it? Are you going to be a fun person to help me relax so I'm not a perfectionist? Are you going to, whatever, no? Are you going to be more of a coach asking questions? No?
Yeah.
Because you need to get into why I'm getting late to the meetings. So you're going to be my coach and help me. On the other hand, you're going to have your own goal and I'm going to be your coach and help you succeed. Once each member achieves their goal, they move to another one and another one and another one.
How do you pair the teams of 2?
Great question. It all depends. Sometimes we ask people to choose someone, but the trick is you don't want to choose someone that you feel too close to, because then it becomes more of a friendship and blah, blah. But also it's hard to work with someone that you feel really bad about, no?
Yeah.
But in most cases, we kick it off when we want to open workshop with a team of 20, 30, whatever. We just random say you and you and you, and they have to work. We say, well, try it. And if after a couple of months it's not working, maybe you can switch. But I think that it's more important the practice than who you do it with.
Yeah. And I guess if you start with the exercise you mentioned before, the who are you exercise, to really build a kind of basis of trust and a bond, then you can basically work with everyone. I think there are very few people that we really dislike despite knowing them better.
Yes, that's a great point. But also, if it's part of the team, so you need to learn to work with everyone, even your enemies, no? But if it's in your team, it shouldn't be an enemy.
Yeah.
It should be a difficult person. I always tell people, like, instead of judging the other, think, what is that person saying about you?
Oh, yeah.
So many times we don't like in others what we dislike about ourselves.
Yeah. That's why we have problems with our mothers, because they constantly reflect ourselves, right?
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. I just looked at the time and realized that it just disappeared.
Well, yeah, exactly. It was
interesting.
fun.
Yes, I'm glad. But I don't want to take too much of your time. So
Let me know if you have one or two other questions and we can wrap it up.
Yes.
Sure that covered everything.
Is there anything you would like to share that we haven't touched upon?
I think that trying to summarize a little bit the spirit, especially when we're talking about collaboration or being part of a workshop or a meeting, it's twofold. First, the success or failure of a meeting depends on everyone.
Mm.
So it's easy to blame the boss or the person who invites you to the meeting or the one who set the agenda if the meeting's not working. So ask yourself, how can you make that meeting better, and what are you doing that the meeting sucks, instead of blaming the rest?
Would you have this conversation with a team? So
yes.
The responsibility of each to make this meeting successful?
Yes, going back to what we discussed about reward collective behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to change collective behavior, address it collectively.
Yeah.
So in our case, we do very little coaching. No, we do a lot of consulting and workshop facilitation, but most of the coaching that we do is for the team. Mm-hmm. We do from time to time coach a particular leader, but as part of a team coaching. Because what's the purpose of talk to you and then to another team member when we need to talk about, guys, we need to work together. Mm. When you have a one-on-one, you're going to tell me, it's that other guy, you know. And the other person is going to say the same about you. When we are together, it's we need to solve this problem, guys. We.
Yeah. Final question. And it's just because I'm so curious. When did you start calling yourself a facilitator?
I don't know. I think that facilitating is a key role of any leader, either if you're a formal leader, an informal leader, or you are leading a meeting or a workshop. No? Mm-hmm. Leading in the sense of facilitating, because it's not about telling the rest what to do. I always tell people, you're not going to learn anything from me. I'm not going to make you change. So I design an experience, but it's up to you to embrace it and take the full. So you need to open your mind. I always say, empty your cup, put everything you know aside, and give a chance to everything I'm going to introduce today that it might be possible that it could work. Mm-hmm. But if you don't try it, you don't know. So forget about what you tried, forget about what you know, boom. Experiment. I think workshops are critical for people to take risks and practice behaviors that they cannot usually practice at home, so to speak. No? So I think that in that sense, I've been a facilitator. I tried to be a facilitator, and I try now most of my career. Yeah. But I also screw things up a lot. No? I always say that when it comes to meetings or workshops, I apply the bad example from people I work with, the things that the mistakes and all the screw-ups I made in my career, and now I'm trying to solve them both.
So at least they were worth for something.
Yes.
Yeah, and usually the biggest mistakes and fucked ups, they just turn into the best anecdotes. So whenever something bad happens to me, I just try to remember, okay, tomorrow it's going to be a very good story. Yeah, as long as you can solve it. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's
nice words or money. It's okay.
Absolutely. That's a great test that you can do for meetings. You can send an invitation, let's say from the team leader to half of the team and say, guys, this meeting I'm going to be sharing all my success stories throughout my career so you can learn. And the other one, send and say, I'm going to invite you to a meeting. I'm going to share all the failures and mistakes I made and what I learned. And see how many people show up to one meeting and the other.
Yes, I think we can all very well predict it, right? Yeah, recently I watched a short video by the School of Life, Alain de Botton. I love these guys. They also said it's nobody's actually interested in your success stories. We all are only interested in our struggles because this is how we bond with each other, how we can relate to each other, how we see the humanness. So sharing success stories is maybe good for us and our own ego, but it's not interesting unless it's inspiring and others can learn from it.
Yeah,
But otherwise, nobody really cares.
absolutely.
Yeah. Sad but true. If someone in the audience fell asleep after minute 1, just woke up and doesn't have time to listen to our conversation again, what do you want them to remember?
Meetings are not the enemy. Badly designed meetings and badly designed meetings are the facilitated meetings are the enemy.
Yeah, nice. And if now someone wants to reach out to you, read your blog, you all must read his blog. It's fantastic, full of wisdom. How can they find you?
They can go to my website, which is liberationist, liberationist.org.
And I will put it in the show notes.
Yeah, liberationist.org, and people can go there and there's contact form if you want to ask questions or reach out. They can see all the things that we do, but also they have the link to my posts. I have like over 400 posts, but also many tools. Yeah. So the exercises that we discussed before, the who are you, the accountability partners are all there. You can download them, but also you have all the instructions to facilitate it. So
awesome. I will put all of that in the show notes.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you so much for your time and for this chat. That was huge fun.
Awesome. Yeah, it was really fun. I appreciate you reaching out. It was amazing. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for staying tuned and listening to the show. I appreciate your attention as I know how busy you are. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and engage by sharing your comments and thoughts, and visit workshops.work to download the one-page summary. I'm looking forward to seeing you back at the next episode, and I wish you a fruitful day.